Ciao, and welcome to your afternoon stroll through the historic Castello district of Venice. I hope you filled up on excellent food and had a cold drink, because today we are taking things slow. It's hot, the sun is high, and the secret to surviving summer in Venice is to walk like a local, sticking to the shady side of the alleyways and pausing frequently to soak in the stories. Today, we are skipping the standard tourist tracks to explore the maritime powerhouse of the old Venetian Republic, hunt down a legendary local love story, walk the grand waterfront promenade, and finish with a spectacular view near St. Mark's. From the restaurant, head back towards St. Mark's Square. Just ahead on your right, you'll see the Naval Museum of Venice. Take a right before crossing the bridge and walk along the canal. The museum you're passing holds everything from Cold War submarines to a scale model of the Doge's legendary gold-covered state barge. One of the most fascinating aspects of the museum is its display of vintage gondolas, including the striking over-the-top private vessel belonging to famous art collector heiress Peggy Guggenheim. You are making your way toward the massive brick walls and towers of the historic naval shipyards. As you walk along the shade, you're approaching the foundational powerhouse of the Venetian Empire. From the 12th to the 16th centuries, this wasn't just a scenic canal. It was the high-tech, assembly line manufacturing marvel of the Western world. Long before Henry Ford thought of the moving assembly line, the Venetians were building entirely functional war galleys here in a single day. A ship would float down this canal, and workers would lean out of windows to drop rigging, oars, food supplies, and weapons onto the deck as it passed. By the time it hit the open lagoon, it was ready for battle. Look at those massive crenellated brick walls stretching out around the complex. The secrets of Venetian shipbuilding were so fiercely guarded that if a worker tried to leak their technical designs to a foreign power, the Republic would track them down across Europe. Now, let's walk right up to the massive entrance and cross the bridge ahead to get a closer look at the main gates. Of course, stopping for a quick picture. After crossing the bridge, stand before the majestic land gate of the Arsenale di Venezia. This magnificent portal looks more like a Roman triumphal arch than a factory gate. It was built in 1460 to showcase Venice's immense wealth and confidence. Let's talk about the giant stone lions guarding the entrance. They look imposing, but they are actually stolen souvenirs. The Venetians loved a good victory trophy, so they brought these lions back from Greece in the late 17th century. If you look closely at the large lion on the left, you might notice some faint, strange scratch marks on its shoulders. Centuries before the lion was brought to Venice, Scandinavian mercenaries serving the Byzantine emperor carved their names right into the stone while stationed in Athens. When you've finished admiring the lions, look back at the bridge you crossed to get here. Along the Fondamenta dei Arsenalotti, 3 bridges bear names from Dante's Divine Comedy. The bridge you crossed is Ponte del Paradiso. In 1314, Dante visited Venice as a diplomat and was profoundly struck by the raw industrial energy of these very shipyards. In fact, in Canto 21 of the Inferno, he immortalized the Arsenale, comparing the sticky, boiling pitch used to caulk Venetian ships to the agonizing tar pits of hell. Standing here today, you are looking at a physical crossroads, where Venice's maritime superpower legacy directly collided with and inspired the greatest masterpiece of Italian literature. Make a left, past the lions down the narrow walk along the canal, and you're walking past Ponte del Purgatorio, another of the bridges named for Dante's Divine Comedy. Keep going straight. We are diving into the quiet residential alleys of Castello. Up ahead, you'll come upon a courtyard in front of church, and you'll head over the bridge that veers a bit to the right. On top of the bridge, take a moment, and maybe a photo or two, to appreciate the serene, beautiful canals of Venice. After crossing the bridge, you'll head down the canal just a short bit until you come to a dead end. You have no choice but to turn left down Calle del Pestrin. Although it's called a street, it's more of a narrow walkway. There's not much to see here, but what you're walking through is the real Venice. This is where the locals live. Only about 50,000 residents live in the historic island center, but there are another 200,000 that live on the mainland and on the other islands. You should be coming up to a small crossroads with a few restaurants. You'll make a right, down Calle Crocera, and you're almost to our next spot of interest. After making a right down Calle Crocera, you should come to a walkway in the brick building on your right. Above the walkway, it says Sottoportego dei Preti. Step into the deep shade of the Sottoportego dei Preti and walk toward the opposite end. But don't exit out of the archway until I tell you the story of this area. Underneath the archway at the end lives one of Venice's sweetest and most magical local legends. Centuries ago, a poor young fisherman named Oreo met a beautiful mermaid named Melusina here. They fell deeply in love, and she agreed to give up her tail to marry him on land. But she had one strict condition. Every Saturday before their wedding, he had to leave and not see her all day. Curiosity got the better of Oreo. One Saturday, he peeked in on her and discovered she was cursed to turn into a sea serpent on Saturdays until they wed. Undeterred, Oreo married her anyway, and they lived happily here with their children, until Melusina tragically passed away. Heartbroken, Oreo noticed a small brick heart near the archway where they used to meet. Look up into the arch. Do you see the small stone red heart set into the brickwork? Local Venetian lore says that if couples touch this red heart together, their love will be blessed with good fortune forever. Give the heart a gentle tap for good luck, or touch it with your partner and give each other a kiss. And then let's move out into the bright square and turn left. Head past the shops and then between the buildings into Campo Bandiera y Moro. You'll arrive in the sun-drenched square called Campo Bandiera y Moro, and if you need a quick break or a sip of water, there's hopefully an open park bench in the middle of the piazza. Welcome to Campo Bandiera y Moro. While it may seem peaceful today, this square is deeply tied to Italy's fight for freedom. It's named after Attilio and Emilio Bandiera and Domenico Moro, who were young Venetian naval officers and heroic martyrs of the Italian unification movement. If you look over at the majestic 14th-century Gothic church of San Giovanni in Bregora, you're looking at a piece of musical history, because this is the exact place where the famous Baroque composer Antonio Vivaldi was baptized in 1678. The square also features the elegant Palazzo Bador, an ancient building that once served as a prestigious residence showcasing beautiful Byzantine-style architecture. As you cross the square, look over at the traditional stone wellhead right in the center, which was once the literal lifeline of this neighborhood, supplying fresh water to local Venetians for centuries. We're going to cross the square and pass between the buildings ahead of us, between the restaurant and the red building with Gothic-style windows. Now we're headed down another narrow walkway called Calle della Pietà. You'll come to another bridge, another nice photo opportunity. When you get to the top of the bridge, look to your left, down the canal, and between the buildings. You can see the bell tower and Duomo from San Giorgio Maggiore. Continue over the bridge and down the narrow walkway. We're passing more residences, as well as former palaces that have now been converted into hotels and bed and breakfasts. Just ahead, we're going to make a left turn down an almost hidden street, just across from the Bisanzio Hotel. Once you make the left, take the brick-lined walkway down quite a way toward the light at the end, which is the main promenade. As you walk toward the end of the street, you will probably start to hear the murmur of the crowd. Further down the street, you might even be able to see the bell tower from San Giorgio Maggiore as you get closer. When you walk through the opening at the end of the street and step out onto the busy Riva degli Schiavoni, the massive building on your right is the Chiesa della Pietà Santa Maria della Visitazione. This isn't just an architectural beauty. It is one of the most important landmarks in the history of classical music. This church is famously known as Vivaldi's Church. The brilliant Baroque composer Antonio Vivaldi served here as the violin master and choir master in the early 18th century. The building was originally part of an attached orphanage for girls. Vivaldi trained the orphans to become one of the most celebrated and virtuosic choirs and orchestras in all of Europe. Travelers from across the continent would flock right here just to hear them perform his newly penned concertos, including early versions of his famous Four Seasons. Let's continue to the right, heading west down the grand waterfront walkway, enjoying the refreshing breeze off the lagoon as we approach yet another beautiful bridge over a canal with a spectacular view of another bell tower. This is the stunning white marble bell tower of San Giorgio dei Greci. Completed in 1603 by Bernardino Ongarin, you will immediately notice it has a dramatic tilt, leaning precariously to the west. Because of the notoriously soft and marshy Venetian subsoil, this 44-meter-tall tower began to sink and tilt while it was still being built. It's a remarkable architectural survivor that has defied gravity for over 4 centuries, bowing gracefully toward Piazza San Marco like a loyal neighbor. After crossing the bridge, you'll see a massive bronze statue of a man on a horse, towering above the promenade. This is the Monumento a Vittorio Emanuele II, erected in 1887 to honor the first king of a unified Italy. As you get closer to the statue, you'll see the king is straddling his charging horse, sword drawn proudly, looking incredibly fierce. Below him, allegorical figures represent Venice breaking free from foreign Austrian rule. While it's meant to be a solemn monument to patriotism, today it mostly serves a much more practical purpose, providing a convenient, shady perch for Venice's ubiquitous seagulls to look for their next snack to swoop in and raid. Continue heading down the promenade, casually and carefully avoiding the also ubiquitous souvenir stands. Just up ahead is another bridge, the Ponte Michelangelo. According to Venetian lore, Michelangelo actually lived in a house just a stone's throw from here during his brief, self-imposed exile from Florence in 1529. Keep heading straight, and be sure to keep your hands on your valuables as it gets more crowded. This is an area where the pickpockets like to work because it's filled with tourists pulling money out for souvenirs and trying to take pictures of the bridge up ahead. But not the bridge you can see yet. The relatively small bridge we're approaching is perhaps the second busiest bridge in Venice, behind the Rialto Bridge. The Ponte della Paglia, or the Bridge of Straw, was called this because it's where boats used to dock to unload straw for local stables. Today it's busy because of what you can see when you stand on top of the bridge and look up the canal. It's the iconic Bridge of Sighs. This beautiful enclosed white limestone bridge connects the Grand Doge's palace on the left directly to the old prison on the right. Romantic poets popularized the legend that prisoners crossing the bridge would look out the tiny stone lattice windows, catch their very last glimpse of beautiful Venice, and let out a heavy sigh. In reality, by the time the bridge was built, the worst tortures of the Inquisition were long over, and the prisoners were mostly petty thieves. However, The legendary lover Giacomo Casanova was actually held in the prison next door, but he famously escaped through the roof rather than sighing on the bridge. After crossing over the bridge, we'll pass the Doge's palace, and we'll take our final few steps around the corner and into the grand entrance of St. Mark's Square, finishing our walk at the two massive stone columns. The Colonna di San Marco, or the Column of St. Mark, is topped with the famous winged bronze lion, the historic symbol of Venice. Beside it stands the second column, featuring St. Theodore slaying a dragon-like crocodile. In the golden age of the Republic, these columns formed the official grand gateway to the city. If a foreign dignitary or a wealthy merchant arrived by boat, this is exactly where they would step ashore to be overwhelmed by the scale and beauty of Venice. However, if you look down at the stone pavement between the two columns, this space was also used for public executions. Because of this, superstitious Venetians will never walk directly between the two columns. They will always walk around the outside. So, to ensure your trip stays lucky, go around. Well, you've survived the heat, walked through centuries of maritime history, chased down local legends, and explored the real heart of Venice. Grab a cold drink, find some shade, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.